Good day everyone, I am Geraldine S. Laurente and now I'm going to tackle about my 3 chosen consecutive articles. These are Article 1170, 1171 at 1172. In Article 1170 state that those who in the performance of obligations are guilty of fraud, negligence or delay, and those who in any manner contravene the tenor thereof are liable for damages. So, this article is related on Article 1165 because this article gives the right the creditor. In the article, it states that the creditor can ask for damages if he finds out that the debtor is guilty for fraud, negligence, or delay, and those who any matter contravene the tenor. So, the debtor is liable for damages if he is guilty of fraud, guilty of negligence, guilty of delay, and contravention of tenor of the obligation. I have an example for us to understand more the Article 1170. Example, an engineer ordered grade 60 rebar from the supplier, but what was delivered was for grade 40 rebar. So the supplier is guilty of fraud. So the supplier is liable for damages to the engineer. The next article that I'm going to discuss is Article 1171. In Article 1171, it states that responsibility arising from fraud is demandable in all obligation. Any waiver of an action for future fraud is void. So, all fraud in the obligation, the debtor has responsibility in all types of obligation, and it is demandable to the side of the creditor. So, any waiver of an action for future fraud is void. When we say waiver, it may be a letter that gives consent or pagpapawalang bisa ng isang pagkakamali o maling nagawa. We have two types of fraud. These are future fraud and past fraud. When we say future fraud, creditor doesn't have the knowledge on the possible commission of fraud by the debtor. So, future fraud is void or invalid because law says that any future fraud cannot be waived for the reason that laws does not allow the fraud. So, any waiver on any future fraud is void. While in past fraud, creditor already has a knowledge on the committed fraud by the debtor. So, it is valid and can be waived. Example of future fraud. Joy and Ann entered into a contract of partnership. They agreed that if Joy commits fraud against Ann in the future, regards to the performance of their contract or partnership, Joy will not be liable. In this situation, even they have an agreement that Joy will not be liable for the damages if she commits fraud in the future, it is still invalid because their agreement is against the law and public policy. So Joy will be still liable for damages and their agreement is void. The last article that I discuss is Article 1172. It states that responsibility arising from negligence in the performance of every kind of obligation is also demandable. But such liability may be regulated by the courts according to the circumstances. So, the debtor is liable for damages resulting from his negligence, but negligence is regulated by the court. It is because it needs to be proved if there is really a negligence. So, it depends on the evidence if there is a negligence. If there is a negligence, the court will test if the negligence is gross negligence or ordinary negligence. When we say gross negligence, it is a lack of care that demonstrates reckless regard of the safety or lives of others. While when we say ordinary negligence, it is a careless mistake or act of an unintentional result in an injury to others. Example, the driver speeding his car through an area where there is a lot of people. So the situation is example of negligence because the driver knows that there is a lot of people. So in this situation, negligence exists for the driver because speeding his car through an area where there is a lot of people is may cause of accident that leads to injury or loss of lives of others. Thank you everyone. That's the end of my report. Always remember, ignorance of the law excuses no one.